I am absolutely thrilled with tonight's Career Catalyst on thought leadership for career impact, gain a competitive edge, and get the job. As we were speaking earlier, I was saying, how have I not connected with Sarah before now? I am amazed by her background. Her one job that I'm going to talk about here, and she'll talk about other ones, is she is the head of social impact at Axion. She advises some of the most well-known organizations like UN, World Bank, other international NGOs. I'm going to put in a second, I'm going to drop her LinkedIn in there if you've not had a chance to look at her background and see what she does. Highly encourage you to do this. I'm thrilled to have you share your insight with everybody here today. And I am going to turn it right over to you to share.
Oh, oh, so sorry. Where am I? Well, that's never happened. Can you see my screen? Wonderful. Thank you so much, Denise and Melissa, for inviting me to speak this evening. I am here as a proud alum and now adjunct faculty in the Elliott School, where I teach the Strategy and Leadership course for the Masters of International Policy and Practice degree. It has been gratifying to reconnect with George Washington University, that was so good to me in my graduate years in the Trachtenberg School. Through a fellowship, such engaged faculty, incredible support from the Career Advancement Office. So I'm just delighted to be here today, for I am often asked by staff and students, I am also motivated to make a difference in the lives of others, and I would love to know how I can more fully develop myself as a thought leader. But before getting to this, I feel it's important to share my background with you, to understand my motivation for being here to encourage you all as the next generation of government, policy, and social impact leaders. It all began long ago on a warm, almost summer night in May, while my mom was finalizing the details of my second birthday party. My dad had accepted a second shift as a railroad brakeman. When he came home around 9 p.m., well after the party had ended, my mom said she wanted a divorce. Two decent, hardworking people who couldn't make it work together. This decision changed my life immediately, whiplashing me into a childhood of poverty, a young adulthood that focused on creating a better life for myself, where I decided that higher education was my only way out. And finally, I began to pursue a career dedicated to poverty alleviation, economic development, higher education, mentorship, and social impact initiative to give hope to others born innocently into poverty. That night, my mother, my 4-year-old brother, and I slowly but surely became destitute. There were no child support laws to safeguard women and their children. I think I was 7 when my dad remarried with a woman who had 3 boys. They had 2 children of their own, leaving my brother and me sixth and seventh in line. We were hungry because there wasn't enough. We were cold because my mother couldn't afford adequate heat during the Michigan winters. And we were often sick because over the counter medicine was a luxury. Often a sniffle turned to a cold, that turned into a cough, that turned into a sore throat, that turned into bronchitis, that turned into pneumonia. These were the most difficult years of my life, but being raised in poverty also formed a deep drive and determination that I would have a better life. It was cold, isolating, alienating poverty. I remember so many times looking into the stars at night and thinking, I don't want to do this. How am I going to get myself out of this? How many other children are living just like me? I knew that others lived in poverty in the United States and around the world were as scared, lonely, cold, and hungry as I was. And I remember thinking then, as I continue to say in my work today, it doesn't have to be this way. My experience being raised without means, connections, role models, or mentors formed my determination to contribute to the empowerment of those living at the base of the pyramid in the US and in developing economies. Even as a kid, I knew I was born into a deficit position without financial stability, zero family or community connections, no role models to follow or emulate, and no mentors. Even as a kid, I knew I would focus on those who have less. But it was around this time I was at GW finishing up my master's degree that I thought about my career. What did I want to do? Where could I make a difference? And how could I begin building my career, establishing my reputation, and to become known as a thought leader in my field? So let's start by defining who is a thought leader. A thought leader has been described as someone known as an expert, authority, opinionated about a specific field. As the term implies, a thought leader leads others in the thinking around a given topic. For young professionals, a thought leader is deliberate and has a plan to become deeply knowledgeable about subjects that bring passion and joy into one's career. Passion to change the way things are, and joy in sharing that knowledge. And so, this is my best advice as you think of specific ways to establish yourself as a thought leader in your career. These are the things I wish someone had encouraged me to do as I set out in my career that I will share with you now. And so I would encourage you to find 2 or 3 conferences that interest you. Be bold in asking to moderate or serve on a panel. Look at the speaker and attendee lists in advance and ask to meet a few people during the conference. Hang out near the morning coffee, afternoon soda, and evening drinks area. And also remember, organizations are increasingly holding virtual conferences to limit time and expense. And I would encourage you to be very deliberate in connecting with professionals. The easiest way to expand your network of professionals is to use LinkedIn to identify a few position titles that are of interest to you, find that professional who holds those positions, and then send a request to connect. Once connected, I would encourage you to do a DNA analysis of their career path. What degrees do they have? What organizations did and do they work for? What are they posting about to identify their interests and also the trends that they're sharing in the field that interests you? And so I would encourage you to send requests to connect. Most people will agree to meet if you are overt in telling them something like this request to meet. At the start of your conversation, once you get together, tell them about your background, your goals for 2 to 3 minutes, and then segue right to the questions that you'd like to ask. At the end of the conversation, of course, profusely thank them for their time and conclude by asking if they would recommend 2 to 3 others to interview, so that if you're disciplined by doing this 2 to 3 times a month, you will have expanded your network to include professionals directly in your field of interest whom you'll see on LinkedIn through the years, and importantly, they will see you, your progress, your posts, your comments, and your interests. Becoming an expert in the field that interests you is actually fun, right? It's not drudgery. It's setting up those informational interviews, setting up Google alerts for updates on key people, organizations, or topics to keep you deeply informed. And you may wish to consider writing opinion pieces for your LinkedIn page and tagging those who should find your post of interest. And this is so important to establish yourself as a thought leader. I have Google alerts on nanoplastics for research. I track AI experts for their analysis of the industry. And I also track thought leaders in business, government, and health. And I also make it a point to write a post at least once a week to share my experiences, my opinions, and lately I've been sharing summaries of the research of other scientists on a topic called plastic in the human body. And so, um, I would encourage you to be deliberate in identifying those key leaders in that field and the organizations in which you wish to become involved by connecting with them regularly on LinkedIn and also many other places to be aware of their opinions and their progress. As you build your career, it's important to stay informed on trends and best practices. So, to start, you can list the people, organizations, and issues that you will track to keep you informed throughout your career, and then subscribe to their newsletters, their Substacks, their YouTube channels that are being produced by these thought leaders and organizations. This is an example of key business leaders, organizations, publications, and writers I track in the field of technology where I work and teach. And I encourage you to take the time to ask ChatGPT or any large language model for lists of thought leaders in the areas that interest you. And I also encourage you to spend time looking at the position titles and job descriptions at organizations that you may never have considered, maybe in another country, Silicon Valley, the United Nations, the financial sector, social impact startups, medical or environmental technology, or within an industry for which you have a passion or interest, and then set up those job alerts on these titles so that you are aware of a wide range of positions. And so, Indeed, LinkedIn, and other job platforms send daily, weekly, monthly alerts on jobs of interest so that you can regularly look at these job descriptions that you think would be ideal. And then you do that DNA analysis and say, I need that experience. I need that skill, so that you can determine exactly the skills you need to acquire. And we can all learn something new, and this is what Gemini provided recently as the top 20 list of current skills anyone should know in the workplace. And once you determine the skills that you would like to improve, I would encourage you to ask your management if you could undertake a task or initiative that will give you the experience you need to advance or acquire that specific skill. And be very overt in sharing with your boss that you'd love to stretch in your role to achieve these experiences. And so, I would also encourage you to find organizations that list their job opportunities either on their website or through their internal portal, and then create that profile, sign up for their internal job alerts, and then apply, apply, apply. The UN and the World Bank are very good examples of where you can create a profile to receive alerts on new positions that have opened. This is a list of organizations and job boards that are in a LinkedIn article that I can share with you all that shows the incredible diversity of jobs, both within the United States and elsewhere, in nonprofit, international non-governmental organizations, foundations, and philanthropic organizations like family offices, the United Nations, World Bank, and private sector realms. And this is a list of United Nations organizations that regularly post their jobs available. For those of you interested in international development, my best advice is to look at this list, maybe take a screenshot, register with a few of them again to receive their alerts, and don't stop applying until you have found the job of your dreams.
Sarah, can I interrupt for a second? Will you be able to share us some of those, these slides, either the slides or those links, and we can send it out to the attendees? Because that was some phenomenal lists.
I'd be happy to.
Thank you. Wonderful.
Sure. Again, I need to emphasize the importance of networking by asking for brief meetings with thought leaders. Share your background, your ideal job, be passionate. Could you give me your advice? Can you give me those three people that I could meet with? And you do that over and over, and you've built your network of 100 or so key influencers. And don't be afraid to reach to the heads of the organizations and the vice presidents, right? People love to talk about themselves and they love to help young professionals to show how they got where they are now by sharing their career path. I would also encourage you to seek a mentor who holds a job that is fascinating to you. And I would encourage you to have multiple mentors in your career. And it is so important to be a mentor throughout your career to someone who is starting out. I tell my kids there's always someone who is, bigger, better, faster, more. There's always someone who is, younger also, right? And so you can reach out and mentor them as well. Um, I would encourage you to consider a virtual internship or a short-term consultancy with a company or an organization to explore their culture or their approach to international business or international economic development. So many students have achieved the jobs of their dreams through volunteering. There's many, many opportunities there. You may wish to consider fellowships in international development or really any field that is of interest. I highly recommend Princeton in Africa, Princeton in Asia, Princeton in Latin America. These are fellowships that have been around, some of them for more than 100 years. So they're highly regarded, and you don't have to be from Princeton, but Princeton University started them. Um, so, seeking speaking opportunities and being purposeful in the content you post on various social media channels is very important. I would encourage you to create an outline of weekly posts. Or perhaps you want to be more spontaneous by combining updates on your work, people you've met, conferences you've attended. What is your opinion on a particular hot topic? Or is your profile going to showcase something else? You may be very purposeful in saying, you know what, all of these posts someday, 2 years from now, I'm going to compile into a book. Or you may consider serving on an advisory board of an organization that is of interest to you, and you can use your LinkedIn to advocate for that organization. I would also encourage you to consider an additional degree. It's increasingly common for young professionals to have at least one master's degree, especially with the proliferation in online higher education. Also, I highly encourage each and every one of you to consider a PhD, to explore a policy, a program, or an intractable issue in depth. That's what you get in a PhD program. You have the luxury of time to really dive deep and develop a program, a strategy, an initiative, a policy. And a PhD also allows you to teach at universities. I decided to get my PhD very young in life. I just wanted to get it over with. And so I tore through that. And then I didn't use my degree until I felt I had the experience and the time where I could give back. And that is why I'm now teaching more. Um, Many universities are starting online degree programs. I would encourage you to find programs that you admire and then apply to teach when you feel it's right, once you have a core base of experience, so that you can share your knowledge and experiences to stay current. If you feel you don't have the experience to teach now, I would encourage you to keep teaching in mind once you reach your mid or late career, as I did. Also, if you haven't done this already, it's important to know yourself, your values, and your strengths. And the Clifton Strengths Finder, the Myers-Briggs Personality Type Indicator, is something called the VIA Character Strengths Survey. Is wonderful. All of them are good to help you deeply understand yourself, your motivations, your strengths, weaknesses as you become a more influential leader through the years. Um, there will never be another you. I would be very confident and aware of your strengths and your weaknesses, and then go for it. I often tell students if you are hesitant to apply, I guarantee that someone else is going to take that job, that experience, that seat. For those who aren't as bold and courageous in how they view themselves, I would encourage you to remember that belief and confidence in yourself goes such a long way. I tell my students in international business and international affairs, while being fluent in another language is not necessarily a requirement for all international jobs, knowing a language is imperative if you focus on a particular country or region. And as you progress in your thought leadership, it's so important to stay curious and be a relentless advocate for change in the areas that are passionate for you, that will benefit societies, whether at a local, statewide, national, or global level. And I wanted to say, being curious is so important. And I have felt that most of us can neatly fit into a bell curve showing those who are interested in the past, the present, and the future. And of course, we're all interested in the past, present, and future, but most thought leaders spend time doing a deep dive in one of those areas, understanding deeply what happened in the past or what is happening in the present or in the future. I have always been interested in life, in what life will be like in the future and how to prepare for it. And so I have focused my career and advocacy on ways to use technology innovations for the greatest benefit to humanity. So some of the current problems and technology solutions from a global perspective in which I'm focused are AI, everything, everywhere, all at once. I actually wanted this to be the title of a book that I wrote last year for a United Nations organization on the use of AI for business and the need to regulate AI, but they came up with a much more boring title. I'm also interested in AI for universities, both applying it within the classroom, within the university, but my priority is to ensure critical thinking among students. I have to tell you, I have noticed a precipitous drop in critical thinking because of ChatGPT or the large language model. And I have ways now that I'm working around that, particularly having students make presentations so that they can show me that they've mastered that concept and they have the ability to articulate their proposed solutions by doing videos and working together. But I'm also interested in OpenAI as a Trojan horse that is stealing massive amounts of intellectual property. There's a very important lawsuit that the New York Times has against OpenAI that created ChatGPT. And for any of you who are, watching that issue, this is a lawsuit that is important to track. Also, I'm interested in cities and how they're transforming. As of August this year, 52% of people work in a hybrid role, 26% work from home, and only 22% work full-time in the office. And as this massive square footage of office space is vacated, I'm tracking how these spaces are creating more affordable housing and human connection spaces in more future-focused cities around the world that are doing this. I believe that higher education, global growth and disruption is one of the last sectors that will be disrupted in the next several years that I believe will result in many universities merging as they are now, and they're going to be creating not necessarily just national degree programs, but global online degree programs to expand their student base. And I am tracking this as someone deeply involved in online higher education, for we desperately need lowest cost, highest quality online degrees for 1 billion people without access to higher education. For example, I created an online master's degree in quantitative analytics for the hedge fund industry that are emerging in developing economies. And we created this online master's degree program that is free and open to anyone in the world for $3.2 million is all. We started an online university from scratch. So I did that not because I really give a hoot about the hedge fund industry, but I did it to prove the model that online higher education can be highest quality and lowest cost. Um, excuse me. And so another that I really kind of blasted my LinkedIn page for the last year solely on this topic, but I am the chair of an expert working group called the Knowledge Impact Network Plastic and Humans Expert Group. And we are identifying ways that technology solution providers are removing the alarming amounts of plastic from the human body that is causing heartbreaking spikes in young adult cancer, heart attack, stroke, and young adult dementia, where microplastics are trapped in the human brain. There's so much more to say on that, but that's preoccupying my time where I'm asserting myself as a thought leader in this field. Social media as misinformation machines. It is imperative that we ensure social media corporations are held accountable for what is published on their platforms. And something that I've been involved in for, since the internet kind of came into being in the 90s as a global phenomenon. Is to ensure that we have positive societal growth once connectivity is achieved. And so I wanted to share ways that I stay current and connected. And so when I'm at conferences, when I was as a young professional, I attended as many sessions as possible for deeper knowledge and awareness of an issue. And now I rarely attend the sessions, but I listen very intently while I'm networking with others for trends and connections and, that kind of benefit. In my consulting work, I focus on client problems, solutions, and again, trends. I read my Google alerts daily on various topics. I track on LinkedIn what thought leaders are saying and doing. I speak and lecture regularly on the topics that I shared with you, and I incorporate audience questions. I'm doing surveys all the time, asking, what are your questions? What don't you know? How do you feel about this? Because if you ask questions, you learn so much about what's on the mind of people who interest you. And so teaching, in my adjunct role, teaching leadership and strategy at GW and in tech at Georgetown, it helps me remain current in trends as I'm regularly exposed to full-time academics, and in tech at Georgetown helps me remain current in trends as I'm also exposed to full-time academics and students who are seeking solutions to right here, right now problems. And so finally, as you think about how you want to become a thought leader, I would encourage you to please stay in touch with your professors. Students rarely do. And instructors want to be connected. They want to see your progress. They want you to connect with them and say, I'd like your advice. Could I meet you every now and then? It's just surprising to me how you have that wonderful connection and then students just disappear. So please stay in touch with your professors, your coworkers, your classmates, and those who gave you a chance in the workplace. Those who are passionate about their careers love to know about, celebrate, and support you along their career path. So please keep in touch with them. And every time you meet someone in a course, at work, at conferences, just be diligent and going back in front of your computer and sending a request to connect on LinkedIn. And so in closing, I wish you all the very best in all that you will do as the next generation of policy and government leaders. How are we doing on time?
Okay, we're doing great. We've got about 15 minutes for questions. So I am going to open it up. I don't think I saw any in the chat yet. But if people want to raise their hands and ask questions or type in questions, we've got about 15 minutes. Can't believe people don't have questions. There you go, Erin. Great.
Hi, I'm Erin Brantley. Thank you so much, Sarah. This was very uh, dense, helpful information. I want to ask, you have a variety of interests, and I'm someone similar. I have a variety of interests, and sometimes I think about like posting something on my LinkedIn, and then I wonder, oh, is that too far outside? So right now I'm like hoping to transition into like a climate and health space. And I think like, well, still have thoughts on what I used to focus on, and then I have thoughts on other things. So how do you decide, like, am I gonna lose followers if I post about things that aren't like my lane for this month?
That's such a good question. And, I get bored very easily. And so I do have that diversity of interests. And so I have a breadth and somewhat of a depth as well. But a lot of people will just, go very, very deep on just a couple of topics. But I'm interested in a lot. And to your point about how do I represent those interests on LinkedIn without appearing, all over the place, if you will. And so I have been deliberate on LinkedIn by just focusing on plastic and humans because it is such a dire situation. Every now and then, I will say, I do have a real job and, I'm focused on this and I want to share this development in AI or whatever. But I also am going to be transitioning over to the professional knowledge impact network expert group so that when I need to post something, I can put that content under that category and then kind of go more into international economic development, for example. Was that helpful? Oh,
Yes, definitely. I just wasn't sure what's professional knowledge and impact group. What was that piece of it?
so I am on the board of an organization called the Knowledge Impact Network, and they mentor social impact initiatives. And one of our groups, one of our expert groups, is the Plastic and Humans Expert Group. So if any of you have an interest now or down the road in starting a social impact venture, which means basically a business that is going to do good things for humanity, we love to mentor those new startups.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have the website for that they can go to?
It's knowledgeimpactnetwork.org.
Okay, I'll find it and drop it in the chat while Natalie's asking her question. Natalie, you're up.
Great. Thank you so much, Denise. And thanks so much for 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 Sarah, all of the reflections you've shared. Really appreciate your vulnerability and just sharing your personal story at the very beginning. That was really helpful and I think just really speaks to the importance of our those of us who can supporting those in our network to make those connections and understand how best to navigate career paths. So really, really appreciate that. I'm in the midst of a sort of mid-career pivot. I worked at USAID for almost 10 years. And so now I'm just trying to think through what the next career step is. And I really appreciate the previous colleague's question. Sorry, and I promise, Denise, I was not driving when I was typing those chats. I'm in the midst of my childcare pickup circuit, and now I'm walking, and my son is screaming at me. But really appreciate the previous colleague's question about sort of consistency in LinkedIn posts. So that was really helpful. I think I also am just really curious about your advice on as we're making these connections at conferences over LinkedIn, how to sort of, I don't know how best to say it, how to manage or how to keep those connections current. I find I'm trying to do a lot of networking, talking to a lot of different people, and I'm trying to figure out how best to make sure I stay in their mind's eye, it's kind of hard to manage and keep current all of those relationships as I'm networking. And if you have any advice, and hopefully that question is, I'm a little distracted, is understandable, but just how to sort of to keep those connections live, I guess. Thank you. I'm sorry for the background noise.
No, I cannot say enough about LinkedIn. And as you build your network, you're going to be flooded with their thoughts and opinions in the feed of your own LinkedIn profile, right? And then maybe you say to yourself, I'm going to write a comment, a supportive comment, intelligent comment, or a helpful comment with a link based on something that they said. And if you have, 100 in your network, you're going to see them flow through your feed. And then you can just have a goal just to be helpful and just stay on their radar. And you can do that also by email, but I'm finding that, we're just using email less and less. And I use LinkedIn just all the time to do exactly that, just to kind of say to the head of the MacArthur Foundation, oh, that's so wonderful that you're doing this new program in AI for small communities. I'd love to be considered to read some of your grant proposals, just something like that. And sometimes I don't want to be overt in public, so I'll just send her a direct message on LinkedIn. And I wanted to say something about being vulnerable in terms of sharing my background. That was very difficult for me when I started only about 10 years ago, having the courage to say I was raised in poverty, right? It was hard for me to find those words, but it's so important that we are open about our own challenges and struggles, and I think it lends a little degree of authenticity, and it tells why I'm doing what I'm doing. Paula?
Yes, thank you again, Sarah, for all of your insight. I really enjoyed this presentation. I just had a question about how to stay motivated and inspired in a time where there's a lot going on. I think right now I'm struggling with still having the passion, still having the umph for the things that I'm interested in. And I know how to leverage myself. I know how to put myself out there. I know how to network and, mingle with others. But I think right now I'm just struggling to keep that motivation going. So I was wondering if you have any advice in that realm.
Such a great question. My grandmother would always say, "This too shall pass." And it will. And honestly, I have it's a little ticker until the next inauguration, that keeps me focused that, it's only X number of days before things will change. Change is inevitable. And I don't get mired in the, the things that I can't control, right? I really am deliberate about the news articles that I will read. And normally they're just focused on things that are about my career, not about anything else that is beyond my control. Um, you know, I am very spiritual. Candidly, my husband, he's working with a contracting firm, and they're doing a lot of layoffs now because of all of the cuts with the with Doge, and we don't know if we're safe or not. And so, I just do a lot of deep breathing and just relying on my spirituality to focus on the things that matter, focus on the humans that matter. And I realize that so many are in this position, right? And I keep saying to myself, I am not going to let this person define how I am going to react to this situation, right? I'm trying to stay as positive and future focused and encouraging to others as well.
Thank you for
We had a question that came in. I'm just looking at the time that came in the chat, and how have you particularly like probably early in your career, managed the imposter syndrome, particularly in a competitive job market where you feel beaten down?
I still have it. I just happen to be a very insecure kind of person. And I think that has actually helped me because before I go into a meeting, I've got to, triple research and make sure that I've got all my key points that I want to make because I always think that, people are bigger, better, faster, more than me. And so I don't know if it was an imposter syndrome, because I always felt, I belong here and I do have something to contribute, but I do over prepare. Um, and I guess I just um, know that I am in it for the right reasons, for in terms of values, morals, ethics, and what I am trying to do to make a difference in the lives of others. So that fuels me. Like I'm doing it, I'm in the right place for the right reasons, and I over prepare.
We've got time for a couple more questions. I think we have about 3 minutes left. There's got to be some questions here. I could always ask questions, but I'm sure others have.
And I keep these little quotes, find little inspirational quotes and put them around your house, like do the can't be done. I don't know if you can see that. And, be you, be authentic. And I do that for my children as well. Because my mom did that. And I, you can't help but just kind of have that in your brain. All these, positive thoughts really do make a difference.
This is tremendous.
I would encourage you all to connect with me on LinkedIn. I do have an article on how to establish yourself as a thought leader, and I will share this deck as well.
Well, thank you. I feel hopeful. And we've had some programs recently, and I say this all the time, is that our alumni give such powerful advice that's really practical and useful and pragmatic for doing the work that we do. But our alumni are hopeful and the long-term view, and I think both are equally as important. So I cannot thank you enough, Sarah, for providing information and inspiration that I think we all needed. And thank you for what you do.
Well, thank you. It's wonderful being with you, and just believe in yourself. Do it.
That's a
All the best.
perfect way to end. Thank you all this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.